This expensive water's too clean for dirty people like you. Kevin Henderson's words sliced through Meridian Grocery's weekend crowd. The store manager stood over Dorothy Washington, 67, clutching an empty Evian bottle like a weapon. Without warning, he dumped every drop over her silver hair. Water exploded across her navy church dress. Kevin's boot kicked her fallen purse, scattering pills and reading glasses across the floor. He grabbed his phone, snapping photos as water dripped from her pearl earrings. "Everyone look free entertainment," Kevin announced to the growing crowd. "Guess some people never learned basic hygiene." Dorothy knelt in the puddle, calmly collecting her medication bottles. Her voice stayed steady as water pooled around her knees. "Water will find its way." 15 customers stared. 5 phones were recorded. 1 live stream had already started. Have you ever been so humiliated that you felt like drowning only to discover you were actually the ocean? The puddle spread like spilled ink across the white tiles. Dorothy remained kneeling, methodically gathering her scattered belongings while Kevin circled her like a predator savoring its catch. "Ma'am, the community pool is 6 blocks down," Kevin announced loudly. "This is a premium grocery store, not your personal bathing facility." Several customers chuckled nervously. Others shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to intervene. Dorothy's fingers found her cracked reading glasses. Water still dripped from her chin as she carefully folded them into her purse. Kevin stepped closer, his shadow falling across the puddle. "Look at this mess you've created," he said, pointing at the water stains. "My promotion interview is in—" He checked his watch dramatically. "Exactly 10 minutes. And now I have to deal with this disaster." Sarah Lane, 28, had been live streaming her grocery haul when the incident erupted. Her phone now captured everything from aisle 8, viewer count climbing rapidly. The chat exploded with outrage. "Call the police! This is assault! Where is this store?" "Hey everyone," Sarah whispered to her phone. "I'm witnessing straight-up discrimination at Meridian Grocery on 5th Street. This manager just poured water on an elderly black woman for asking about honey prices." Kevin noticed the filming and grinned. "Perfect. Get this for your social media. Maybe she'll go viral. Soggy shopper disrupts local business." He struck a mock pose beside the kneeling Dorothy. The live stream viewer count hit 847. Dorothy slowly stood, water still streaming from her dress. From her soaked purse, several items had scattered. Prescription bottles, a tissue packet, and what appeared to be an airline boarding pass. Kevin snatched the boarding pass before she could retrieve it. "Kenya Airways, business class," he read aloud mockingly. "What's this? Pretending you can afford international flights? These are probably fake." He waved the pass above his head like a trophy. Dorothy's voice remained calm as mountain snow. "Young man, I'd like to speak with your corporate office." Kevin threw back his head and laughed. "Corporations don't take calls from people like you. They deal with actual customers, people who can afford our premium products without causing scenes." He gestured toward her dripping form. "Look at yourself. You're literally dripping on my clean floors." Assistant Manager Jessica Torres emerged from the back office, drawn by the commotion. At 34, she'd worked retail long enough to recognize trouble, but Kevin was her direct supervisor and his promotion would mean her own advancement. "What's the situation here?" Jessica asked, though the scene spoke for itself. "This woman created a disturbance and damaged store property," Kevin explained smoothly. "She's been hostile and uncooperative. I tried to help her, but she became aggressive." Dorothy continued picking up her belongings with quiet dignity. Her Cartier watch, somehow still elegant despite the water damage, caught the light as she reached for a fallen pill bottle. "I simply asked about a price discrepancy on the organic honey," Dorothy said softly. "The shelf price showed $8.99, but it scanned at $12.99. Kevin snorted. "Ma'am, if you can't afford premium products, maybe try the dollar store. They have more suitable options for your budget." The crowd had grown to nearly 20 people. Some filmed, others whispered among themselves. A few customers quietly moved to different aisles, clearly uncomfortable with the scene unfolding. Sarah's live stream chat was now a torrent of angry comments. Someone call corporate now! This is 2025, how is this happening? I'm never shopping at Meridian again! Kevin's confidence soared as he played to his audience. Folks, this is what happens when people don't understand appropriate behavior in upscale establishments. Some people just don't know their place. Dorothy finished collecting her belongings and stood slowly, water droplets creating a small constellation around her feet. She pulled out her phone with hands that barely trembled. Every drop creates ripples, she said quietly, looking directly at Kevin. Kevin checked his watch again. 2:18 p.m. 12 minutes until my regional director call, he announced proudly to Jessica. Perfect timing to show I can handle difficult situations professionally. Dorothy pressed a number on her phone. Not 911, not customer service. A number she knew by heart. Kevin was already planning his promotion story, oblivious to the digital wildfire spreading across social media. Number Meridian discrimination was beginning to trend locally. Corporate Twitter mentions were multiplying like cells dividing. The water puddle remained on the floor, evidence of what had transpired. Kevin demanded that Dorothy clean it up before leaving, but she simply stood beside it with the poise of someone who had weathered far greater storms. Truth spreads like water, Dorothy whispered, her finger hovering over the call button. The tide was about to turn. At 2:19 p.m., Dorothy pressed call. The number connected immediately. Kevin continued his performance, energized by the growing audience and his approaching promotion interview. He'd positioned himself strategically near the water puddle, using it as a prop in his narrative of maintaining store standards. Security to aisle 7, Kevin announced over the store intercom. We have a customer refusing to leave after creating a disturbance. 2 security guards responded within minutes. Marcus Williams, head of security and a 15-year veteran, surveyed the scene with practiced eyes. The water stain told its own story. Dorothy stood calmly beside it, phone pressed to her ear, speaking in tones too low to overhear. Behind the customer service counter, teenage cashier Ashley Martinez fumbled with her register, clearly disturbed by what she'd witnessed. Her supervisor, Janet Kim, tried to maintain normal operations while stealing glances at the commotion. What's the situation? Marcus asked, though his expression suggested he'd already formed an opinion. Kevin launched into his rehearsed explanation. This woman has been disruptive, argumentative, and damaged store property. She's creating an unsafe environment for our customers and refuses to take responsibility for her actions. Marcus looked at Dorothy, still dripping slightly, then at the enthusiastic crowd filming everything. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to... Marcus, Dorothy said gently, ending her call. I understand you're doing your job. Please proceed as you see fit. Something in her tone made Marcus pause. He'd worked security long enough to recognize authority when he heard it, regardless of how it was packaged. Kevin, oblivious to the undercurrent, pressed his advantage. As you can see, she's been uncooperative from the start. Some people just don't understand how to behave in quality establishments. Sarah's live stream had exploded. Over 3,200 viewers now watched the confrontation unfold in real time. The chat moved too fast to read, but the sentiment was unmistakable. Multiple people were posting the store's phone number, urging others to call and complain. The store's landline began ringing incessantly. Ashley looked helplessly at Janet, who was already overwhelmed by the influx of angry callers demanding to speak with management. In the corporate offices downtown, phones were already ringing. Kevin gestured dramatically at Dorothy's water-stained dress. Look at the mess she's made of herself and our store. This is exactly why we have standards and policies. Some customers simply don't meet our establishment's expectations. The crowd murmured disapprovingly. A middle-aged black man in a business suit stepped closer, his jaw clenched with barely contained anger. That's enough, he said quietly. Kevin spun around. Sir, if you have a problem with how I manage my store, you're welcome to shop elsewhere. I'm running a business here, not a charity. The businessman pulled out his phone and began recording as well. Other customers followed suit. The circle of witnesses expanded, creating a human amphitheater around Dorothy and her tormentor. From the pharmacy section, Dr. Patricia Reeves, a local pediatrician picking up prescriptions, shook her head in disgust. "This is absolutely unacceptable," she muttered to her companion. "Someone needs to report this." Kevin's confidence peaked as he spotted District Manager Mike Rodriguez approaching from the front entrance. Mike had driven over from his regional rounds after receiving multiple customer complaint calls, but Kevin interpreted his arrival as validation. "Perfect timing, Mike," Kevin called out. "I'm handling this situation professionally, just like we discussed in my performance review." Mike took in the scene: the water puddle, the elderly black woman in a soaked dress, the crowd of filming customers, and Kevin's triumphant posture. His expression grew increasingly grim. Behind the deli counter, employees whispered among themselves. Maria Santos, who'd worked there for 8 years, shook her head in dismay. "He's finally gone too far," she told her coworker. "I've seen him be rude before, but this—" "Kevin, what exactly happened here?" Mike's voice carried a warning Kevin completely missed. "This customer became belligerent when I explained our pricing policies," Kevin said smoothly. "She created this mess," he gestured at the puddle, "and now refuses to clean it up or leave the premises. I've maintained professionalism throughout, but some people just don't appreciate quality service." Dorothy checked her waterproof Cartier watch. 2:23 p.m. 7 minutes until Kevin's regional director called. She almost smiled. The crowd had grown to over 30 people. Most were filming, creating multiple angles of the confrontation. The story was already spreading beyond Sarah's live stream. Customers were posting to Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter with hashtag Meridian Racism and hashtag Water Assault hashtags. Corporate social media mentions were spiking every 30 seconds. The Meridian customer service lines were jammed with angry callers demanding explanations. In boardrooms across the city, executives were being alerted to a developing crisis. Jessica fidgeted nervously beside Kevin. As assistant manager, she'd witnessed the entire incident, but had remained silent, hoping to avoid becoming involved. Now, with district management present and cameras rolling, her silence felt increasingly heavy. From the produce section, store employees gathered at a safe distance. Night shift supervisor Carlos Mendez had come in early and witnessed the tail end of the incident. "This is bad," he whispered to the produce manager. "Really bad." "Ma'am," Mike addressed Dorothy directly, "I apologize for any inconvenience. If you'd like to file a complaint—" "That won't be necessary," Dorothy interrupted softly. "I'm already in contact with the appropriate parties." Kevin laughed loudly. "See? She admits she's just looking for attention, probably hoping for some kind of settlement or social media fame." He turned to address the crowd. "This is exactly the kind of behavior that costs legitimate businesses money and reputation." A teenage employee from the deli counter had joined the crowd, her name tag reading MAYA. She stared at Kevin with undisguised disgust. "Mr. Henderson," she whispered to Jessica, "this is really messed up." Jessica hushed her quickly, but the damage was spreading through the staff ranks. Word traveled fast in retail environments, and Kevin's reputation among employees had never been stellar. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Something about the woman's composure under extreme humiliation reminded him of his grandmother, a woman who'd faced down much worse than water and insults with the same quiet dignity. The water puddle had begun to attract maintenance attention. A janitor approached with a mop, but Kevin waved him away. "Leave it," he commanded. "Evidence of the disturbance she created." "Kevin," Marcus said carefully, "maybe we should handle this properly." "Absolutely," Kevin interrupted. "Ma'am, you have 2 choices. Clean up the mess you made and leave quietly, or be escorted out by security. Either way, you're not welcome here anymore." Dorothy's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and nodded slightly, as if confirming something she'd been expecting. "Deep waters run still," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Kevin checked his watch again. 2:25 p.m. 5 minutes until his career-defining call with Regional Director James Martinez. He could already imagine describing how he'd handled this difficult situation with poise and authority. The live stream viewer count hit 4,800. Comments poured in from across the city as the video was shared and reshared. Local news outlets were beginning to take notice. The Meridian corporate Twitter account was being bombarded with demands for explanation. Local reporter Jenny Kim from Channel 7 News had just received the tip and was already dispatching a crew. The story was transitioning from social media incident to mainstream news coverage. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kevin announced to the crowd, playing to the cameras, "this is what professional retail management looks like. Sometimes we have to make tough decisions to protect our business and our valued customers." Several customers in the crowd exchanged disgusted looks. An elderly white woman near the bakery section shook her head visibly. A young father covered his daughter's eyes and steered her toward another aisle. Dorothy